All right, folks, welcome back to Mike and Maurice's Mind Escape. We are joined by friend of the show, our buddy Trent Stevens, and we are going to be discussing psychedelic metaphysics and entities. Very interesting stuff. Before we get started tonight, you can actually go check out his podcast. It's called Continuing the Conversation. He has a Discord channel. I'll put the link to all that down below. And it's an awesome thing, awesome setup he's got going on. He's got all these, wonderful minds connecting, and they do this. Basically, it's like a group podcast, so it's a really cool idea. So you should definitely check that out if you get a chance. And let's see here. Before we get going, head on over to our Patreon at patreon.com/mindescapepodcast. For just $2 a month, you'll get exclusive guest episodes and segments. Tons of new stuff up there. We've got stuff with, let's see here, Rick Strassman, Laird Scranton, Matthew Clark, Laura, the Megalith Hunter. I mean, you name it. And maybe we'll sneak one in here with Trent as well, so look out for that. Also, I do have ones up there with Martin Martin from the Alchemical Mind and Anthony Tyler, so go check those out as well. And just great stuff. Head on over to our Discord channel if you have not already as well. One more thing, head on over to indrasweb.org. It is live. Sign up for a profile today. If you like speculating, hypothesizing, theorizing on all the topics we normally discuss, it's the perfect place to do it. Go set up a profile. And it's not in the App Store yet, but we are still working on that. So go check that out. Oh, and one more thing. We are giving away these Mind Escape t-shirts, or I should say this Mind Escape t-shirt you see there on the screen at the end of the month. So if you want to enter to win, all you have to do is go to Apple Podcasts, leave a 5-star review, and take a screenshot of it, and then send that to mindescapepodcast@gmail.com, and that will enter you to win. So we do have a few submissions, so you have a good chance if you enter. But what's going on, Trent? Welcome back on the show.
Thanks so much for having me.
Thanks for joining us.
I'm excited to have an episode here with you, sir.
Yeah, I forgot the last time I was in Miami, but I did watch and I did enjoy.
Yeah.
And we're joined by a fourth person here. You can't see him, but I got Play-Doh behind me. His shadow.
Nice.
He's gonna point and he's gonna judge.
Nice.
It's kind of related to the topic we'll be discussing here, which is kind of like metaphysics and paradigm shifts, but specifically as they associate to psychedelics and stuff like that. Before we get deep into it, I mean, how many experiences with like entities and stuff have you had on psychedelics? Is it something that's been prevalent, or have you only had a few like transformational ones? Or
Man, I'd say in the prior to DMT days, maybe 2 or 3. But then once that first DMT experience, and then, all the following 100 or so, they show up a lot. And then, in the past few, there was an LSD and an MDMA experience. So the same entities seem to, join me there as well sometimes. And I think it was, some sort of floodgate that kind of, allowed that space to be entered easier. And you can get there even without them if you can. For me anyway, if I can quiet my mind, I can, almost sense the entities nearby. But it's just the experiences I've had have created these, entities, whether it's from out or within. That's the experience that it calls to me.
Nice. Yeah, I mean, I can identify with like the whole possibly meditation, being able to get to some of those deeper states and seeing and experiencing weird things. When you've had these entity experiences, have you felt like they were do you think they're like external based on your experiences, or do you think that they're part of your mind or subconscious, like a projection of something internal, or like what do you think's going on?
Yes.
All of the above.
All of that. I mean, I think I ebb and flow between, really believing it's external and then really believing it's all internal, and then getting to a point with, why am I really believing any of that? What evidence do I have to really believe one or the other? And you listen to podcasts like your guys, and you read lots of books, and you explore that question of, is it without or within, or
Probably a little combination of both.
exactly. And how do I know either way? So why pigeonhole myself into one or the other? Why not explore both possibilities?
Absolutely.
And whatever ramifications that might have.
So, what's the most intense entity experience you've had? And was there like a message or some specific takeaway that you had from it?
And everyone's the most intense at the time.
No,
Looking
no, but is
back,
there one that you like think
yeah,
back about a lot? Like,
yeah, for sure. That first one, that
Okay.
first time, when it was like pulling a veil off. It was, some voice that was there that was never there before, and was, so deep inside myself that it was shocking. And you realize that, oh God, that I came back from it as like a person that I think I used to be. I had been like hiding behind all of this stuff that I piled on myself over years and years and years, alcohol and, every other kind of self-torture I could do to myself in like ridiculous amounts. I'm not saying any of that's bad, but the reason I was doing it was this disconnection. And it was like coming back without all that baggage, because these entities, kind of took it for you and said, here, look, I can show it to you. You can see it. And coming back and looking at it and going, whoa, where did I put myself? Why am I here? What have I done? And realizing that it can be fixed, because they just told you, all you got to do is connect and love. And that's always been the message. That's been it for years. And every time I go back and ask some stupid question of the entities, like, hey, what am I doing? What do I need to do? Please help guide me. Every time, loving connection. Is it in line with that? Is that your highest intention? And I've heard it said 1,000 ways by 1,000 different mystical teachers, but it all, always for me anyway, the answer they just keep kicking my ass with is, are you basing this move, whatever this is, on love and connection? If not, now you know why you're suffering.
Absolutely.
So that was the message, and it was, shown to me through a self-intervention almost. I felt like I was on the TV show Intervention. Like it was intense. It was just my life shown to me, and through a guide that was, able to joke and laugh with me and kind of kick my ass and show me the ropes at the same time. And yeah, how do you come back from that and you go, oh shit, and you change a few things and play with it a bit and go back and get the same message and say, how am I not learning this? It seems so easy.
Well, yeah, right when you come out of that, it's usually right there in your mind, and then as time goes on, you slip back into your own ways. Next thing you know, a year's gone by, and you haven't been working on yourself, and you gotta kind of return to that.
And we seek out these ways to connect to that without it. I don't want to be smoking DMT just to feel God. Like that's not my goal here. My goal is to like have this connection and find other ways to get to it and sustain it and hold it. And there's the meditation practices and the breathing practices, and they're all cool and fun in their own right. And it's almost just that seeking for that connection,
Mm-hmm.
And it's always there. The connection is. You're just too loud to have it all the time. That higher self connection, Akashic record, whatever any system wants to call it. You got to quiet yourself to get to it. And sometimes my mind can get quiet from sitting on a pillow on the floor. And other times my mind takes, 3 long tokes off a DMT pipe. either way, it's going to get there, I think.
All right, so like, what would you say is the most intense psychedelic experience in terms of sometimes one catches you by surprise? I know I've had a few of that, experiences, as I mentioned before, that MDMA experience at that Fish show. And I've had a couple others where I wasn't expecting it to kind of go as deep as it went. Do you have any experiences like that?
Yeah, I think the one that this is described best by intense is probably 2CB. It's one of the Shulgin compounds, 2CB, 2CI, 2CT7. There are a bunch of them that came out, and they're all cool mix of MDMA and LSD and feel, but they were shocking. It was intense.
Yeah, and those are from Pikal, right?
Yeah, they were in Pikal, and there were some cool ones. And I always loved reading Anne's description of those 2CB experiences in that book, and I've heard her tell stories of them, and it always sounded so nice. But then again, she always acted like mescaline was this really friendly thing too.
What was like the closest experience like to that? Because obviously I've never done it.
Yeah, so it was like this roller coaster wave of MDMA and LSD, and you'd be trying to figure out where it was. Am I tripping really hard? Am I rolling really hard? And you never quite knew, and you're never quite either. And it's intense. And the only other one that I think I'd throw in that intense factor, that category, is salvia. The salvia divinorum is just that word defines it. Just intense, unworldly.
Yeah, that one.
How long does that last for?
The 2CB?
Yeah.
It's one of those 4 to 6 hours, something like that.
It's not too bad.
You can stretch it out a little further if you want.
So it's like an intense psilocybin length.
Yeah. When I was experimenting with that, when I was in my young 20s, it was, the MDMA crowd had it. That was who was running around with it. So instead of eating a roll at a party, people were having 2CB at the party. And it was crazy. I mean, when you're rolling at a party, you're somewhat lucid, just in this loving, connected place. But this was like throwing this weird disconnect of, holy shit, I'm tripping my balls off for just a few minutes, and then I feel like I come back to my head. And it was always a roller coaster.
Yeah, and I think that says like the experience is a cross between like a serotogenic 5-HT2A receptor trip, and then also combined with like an MDMA style experience.
Yeah, absolutely. That was a fun one.
Interesting. What do you think? Like, do you think anything colors or influences these experiences from like in terms of maybe music, or like if you're meditating, or if you've just watched something or seen something, almost like a dream, like how if you experience something that day, it might come out in the dream. Do you feel like that happens with some of these experiences sometimes?
Yeah, definitely. I think sometimes it happens in both directions. It happens into the future and into the past. Sometimes future events seem to have flavored my earlier trips, and I'm sitting there trying to figure them out until something happens in the future, and you're like, wow. I think they get flavored from all directions for sure. Our lives definitely, our inner stories come out in those trips and have new pieces introduced and connected.
Yeah, I just think about like those like YouTube videos where it shows the guy with like one violin string at the edge of a table, and he like hits the bow to it, and then all the little granules start to take formation, and it looks like some sort of like particle or something. I think about us like that sometimes, I think Mr. Vibrations over there can maybe speak to the spiritual element of that. But I just feel like since everything is frequency and vibration, that when you're in those states, if there is all this neuroplasticity happening and we don't exactly know what consciousness is and we don't have all the answers yet, that maybe some of these experiences are affected by other external things in different ways. I just wonder how much of it, is that, and how much of it is us.
Right. No, and who can know? But I know a lot of me comes out through these experiences. I'm showing a lot of myself, and whether the guide is me or not, it's at least showing me things that, with my normal eyes on, I miss. I just kind of, you can't see things in yourself until somebody shows you or does it in front of you, and you can take the cues from watching other people making the mistakes you're making and learn from that, but that rarely happens for me. I just gloss right over it. It's hard to see your own tomfoolery.
Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah, I think that, again, like the concert thing too, when I've been at like a Humphreys show or like a Fish show or, just any other jam band, when it gets to the point of the jam where it's like climaxing, there's definitely this like feeling of like ecstasy that happens, almost like you're part of this thing that's happening and this is the pinnacle of that thing. I know you're not the biggest jam head, although I'm sure you like that stuff. But are you the one that always tells me to check out Spangle?
Oh, hell yeah, do that.
No, I'm saying, are you the one that there's somebody that always recommends it on our comments? I think it's you.
Yes, definitely me. That was, oh man, I went to the show. It was in the winter in New York City, and it was the first Spangle DJ set I'd ever been to, and it was amazing. Android Jones running visuals. It was fantastic. And
it's like techno music?
Yeah, so it's Spangle is almost like techno, but instrumental techno.
I like that stuff.
The full band has 20 pieces that they put together this show, and then the Spangle DJ is just the Potsford, the guy that orchestrates the whole thing. It's him just using that music and mixing it as a DJ. And it was awesome. It was just like a 6-hour dance party in Webster Hall in New York City with Android throwing VR 3D stuff all over the place. It was
interesting.
Yeah, I have checked it out. It's pretty good for that genre. Like, I'm not the biggest fan of that genre, but I do can appreciate what it is, and obviously I think if you were at that show you'd probably have a great time.
How do you spell
just
it?
like you're saying, they build you up and you're in this crowd.
I think it's SHPONGLE, I believe.
Yes.
I mean, there's jam bands like that too. I think have you ever heard of the
Disco Biscuits?
The New Deal or Disco Biscuits,
kind of
the
Disco
New Deal
Biscuits, that's been live forever. That's awesome.
They're old. They're one of the founders of the whole thing.
The New Deal is just insane. I don't know if you've checked them out, but you should if you haven't. I remember this is a long time ago. I was probably 23. I remember going to see them at the Metro in Chicago, and it was I think 1 o'clock in the morning, when they went on, and they didn't finish till 5 o'clock in the morning. I remember walking outside and the sun was rising and stuff, which is insane to go see a show in Chicago like that at a small club. And yeah, I just remember those were some good times. I was probably not the best point in my life in terms of where I was at, but yeah, partying was definitely fun those late hours, those days. So
yeah.
But yeah, music I think has a huge influence. At least that's how we got into all the psychedelic stuff, as we've mentioned before, from the Grateful Dead and being fans of the Grateful Dead, and then looking into the electric Kool-Aid acid tests and Ken Kesey, the Merry Pranksters, and all that kind of stuff. That counterculture stuff kind of got us going, and then we got into it. I think
music definitely helps define us in life and leads us places. Because I definitely, grew up with different kinds of music throughout my life, kind of led different ways. I got the whole punk ska thing as a kid. It definitely formed some of those early beliefs and stuff that I had. And I can still look back and be like, oh, that's where you got that, huh? You remember some punk day where, some song you really dug, and those lyrics, they worked their way in there. And, you start to really believe the stuff that you're, plugging into.
Yeah.
And then it moved toward the techno, and that was rave culture. And, from 2000 on, there was some really cool rave culture where I was and where you guys both are.
Oh yeah.
Those places
We
in
were a
the
little
early
young for that,
2000s
but
were the scene.
Well, I know doesn't Detroit has the Electronic Music Festival now. That's
yeah, they still have
huge.
some
Yeah.
quite the antics down there from
Yeah,
time
it
to
used to
time.
be like underground and dirty and awesome, and now it's huge and open and awesome. Like
Yeah.
anybody can go. You can take your kids to see techno music, like outside in the city. It's so great.
Well, there's this other thing there called Funk Night, where this DJ does this all this
It was
like
multiple DJs.
yeah, it was like James Brown, like funk kind of like
Nice.
techno-y kind of mixture between like all those genres and stuff. I remember, I think we went to one after a fish show, that Cobo Hall fish show, and yeah, the guy almost didn't let me in. I'm like, dude, I'm balding. Look at the top of my head. You don't think I'm 21? Like, what's going on? And I was like way over, but I didn't have my ID for some reason. But yeah, so yeah, those were the days. But that was cool because it was like a pop up. It would pop up once a month in some random locations. I like things like that, you know.
Yeah, for sure. My early party days, you like got a flyer that had a phone number on it that you like called. And they would like vet you on the phone before they give you the next directions. And sometimes it was a damn scavenger hunt. You'd show up somewhere and they'd be like, "Oh, we had to move it over here, go over there." And we like chased these things down. I did it in like the subways of Cincinnati, which are never functioned. They started building them and abandoned them, which is an awesome place to check out.
Okay, so I mean, Maurice and I have our own experience with Cincinnati. When we were 17, our parents, you know, we all had good grades and stuff. Our parents let us. One of our friends' dads drove us to Chicago, and my dad lived there at the time to see Fish in Chicago. This was when they came back from their first hiatus, and then from there, they allowed us to take a Greyhound from Chicago to Cincinnati to see Fish 2 nights there at the U.S. Bank Arena. And
Cincinnati's Greyhound station. That's the
Okay,
perfect place
so-
for any good story to start.
So yeah,
Yes.
yeah, there was some antics and some old deadheads and some weird stuff. Actually, that was the only time I was ever offered DMT, and at the time, our only knowledge of it, I mean, this is 2003. Our only knowledge of it was trip reports from Irwood. So
Yeah, back then I wouldn't have known what it was. You would have stumped me.
so
Well,
anyway,
they talk about it in the acid test a little bit, but the guy loses his mind, so it's not very appealing.
Right,
yeah.
right.
But so yeah, that was the only time we heard of that. But so we stayed at the 4 Points Sheridan at the time. I
Yeah.
don't know if you remember that.
Yeah.
But it was just cool. Like we were like downtown. I mean, where we were there, it seemed like, you know, it was a good time. You know, but yeah, just walking around and after the show on Shakedown and getting some mystery meat on a stick and
Nice.
The carcaras.
so yeah, there was just some I don't know, those good times back then. But yeah, Cincinnati, I don't know, we had a good time there. I mean, no complaints from our end of things, but we were only there for a
Absolutely.
couple nights. So
No, I had a lot of fun while I was there. I just knew I was never going to be productive, so I had to get the hell out of there. It's too much fun.
something about, you know, hanging around in the same place where you grew up with all your friends. There's just a lot of temptation to do a lot of stuff that's, you know, doesn't keep your focus. I think the best thing I ever did was move away and just get away from everybody that I grew up with. Not that I didn't love them or we had fun. Obviously, that was the point. But if you're ever going to do anything and find yourself and find meaning, you know, I think you need to break away a little bit and get out there. So
Yeah, even if temporarily. And I think college was that outlet for a lot of people, but not everybody did that route. I think it's valuable to kind of try on your own somewhere new. I at least found value in it.
we tried that in college too. That was the problem. It was all we stayed. The crew was together still, and that was
Oh yeah, that was a big crew.
it was a real issue too. So there was nothing happening. Getting and good jams, you know, inspired jams, but that's about it.
Hell yeah.
Are you a musician at all?
I dibble and dabble with a bit of everything. I'm in a house full of musicians, so I pick up instruments because they're always laying around, but I wouldn't call myself any sort of, I wouldn't pigeonhole myself into saying, like, I'm a guitarist, because I just don't spend enough time doing that.
I hear ya.
My wife's a fiddle player. My son is
Sweet.
is a trumpet player. My daughter plays saxophone. I kind of did it all in high school. I was a band geek, so like I played pretty much all the woodwinds, a lot of the brass, just because I am ADHD as fuck. I never really spent any time on any one.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love bluegrass and fiddle and all that stuff. There's this one woman, I forget her name, but she's unbelievable at the mandolin. I've been watching a lot of her videos on YouTube lately. But
Huh.
yeah, I'll try and look up her name. But yeah, I mean, for me, bluegrass, that's always been, people, when we used to put it on in like high school and college and stuff, people were like, what are you listening to? It's just not a thing
It's
unless
a
you
lot
grew up
bigger now.
unless you grew up in
Yeah,
like the South
much
or
bigger.
something back then, that you weren't getting much of it. It was maybe
So
like
I grew
Del
up.
McCory in Tennessee or something like that. But
I grew up Southern Baptist, so like bluegrass was part of church every week. And
nice.
when my wife, when I first met my wife, she was a huge deadhead, like dreads down to her ass when I met her. She was super into bluegrass, and I kept hearing her play it. And I was in this punk and techno world, and she would play bluegrass. I'm like, I feel like I'm at church.
Yeah.
And then slowly it grew on me, and now it's a lot of what we listen to.
That's awesome.
There's this girl we recently came across, Sierra Farrell. Man,
That might be who it is. Maybe.
you gotta check that girl out. Her voice is like unbelievable, like nothing else you'll hear out right now.
Do you like
Oh.
Lindsay Sterling? You ever heard of her?
Oh yeah, oh yeah,
That's like putting those two worlds, the violin or fiddle or whatever, and then the
Yeah.
techno.
yeah. She rips.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there wasn't. I'm trying to think. What I've seen like back in the day, I've seen Del McCory, I think, at a music festival. Jazz Mandolin Project that was like Fishman's from Fish, his side project for a little bit.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah. The jam scene there really started embracing some bluegrass opening stuff. A lot of the jam shows I was going to, there'd be a bluegrass show opening, and I love it. It's good stuff.
Absolutely.
There's a line that crosses though, where it ends being bluegrass and starts being country. And
Yeah.
that line is hard to find, but when you
Yeah.
hear it, it's like, oh God, I'm listening to country music.
Well,
Yeah.
it's not necessarily country, which is bad. It's the alternative country.
Right.
Because
And there's some
gold
line
country
where
is
those
good,
two
at least
blend.
to me.
I was
Yeah.
gonna say, if you listen to like old country, like even I don't know if you should check out this guitar player Danny Gatton. There's some
All right.
country. It's like chicken picking kind of
Yeah,
stuff.
Michael loves that chicken picking.
Well, I mean, even like so like Jerry Reed, who played the truck driver from Smokey and the Bandit.
Yeah.
Dude, that guy is a phenomenal guitar player. Like if he was used to arrange for Chet Atkins, who's one of the all-time greats, and dude, that guy can smoke the guitar. I mean, it's pretty crazy. Like you don't even realize some of these people back then, like what they're capable of doing.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it just depends. I like all sorts of music. I will agree though. Like, I think for me, I like I don't even know what it's called, but like more music oriented country, like where it's focused on like really good musicians and not like the singer kind of a thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I mean, that's why you have music. All sorts of different people like all sorts of different things.
Yeah. No, and I think my psychedelic experiences kind of drive the music I like to listen to, because they're ones that I had some experience while enjoying, being whether it was at some show or listening at the house while we were all hanging out doing something.
Yeah.
It's I don't have a lot of other friends that listen to country, or I don't even know what other kind of music I don't listen to because I don't listen to it. But like that's just not what captures me, because I haven't had those
Right.
mystical experiences that had Spangle playing in the background. I can listen to that all day.
Yeah, no,
I'm gonna check that out.
I have to check more of it out too. I did watch some videos after you told me to watch it though. Yeah, it looked like some, pretty intense stuff, and I could see how it would go along with the psychedelic experience. It's not like it's that out there, like it does kind of flow with that whole thing. So
Yeah. No, they definitely, the guys that orchestrate it and put together the tracks and all that. They definitely do it thinking in mind that their crowd is riding a wave out there. So
Yeah, no,
I think that can be true about most of the jam bands. I think whether or not they're still partaking in whatever substances, they know their crowd is, and they play with that.
Yeah.
I think the woman I was talking about on the mandolin is Sierra Hall.
Sierra Hall. I don't know that name.
Yeah, check her.
Is she chicken picking or?
No, she's a mandolin player.
Yeah, just joking, bro.
Well, I never know with you. You say it's a joke sometimes. I don't even think you realize.
Yeah.
No, I mean, I just I love good music in general. So I think it just like you said, it's just kind of goes along with all this stuff.
Well, yeah, it's a vibration.
Right.
So it's like
it is.
if you take any art form, you could take a master painter, and I have been moved by paintings and things like that. But when you have, I think music, I don't want to say it's the ultimate art form, but it's the most. I don't know. It's the art form that I connect to the most. I'll just speak for myself, and I can listen to a song and it can bring joy or it can bring tears, and I've never had that from looking at a painting personally.
Yeah. Right. No, the vibration of it is just like even if I feel like a lot of times, even if I was deaf, like music would still hit me because I like feel it my whole body.
Yeah.
Like especially like a live acoustic guitar in the same room with you. You feel that. You vibrate.
There's that one movie, I'll tell you what, that they do a good job depicting it because half the movie is like silent and just you feel this guy like silently like freaking out inside. I think he's like a metal drummer. I watched it with my wife.
I watched a little of that and I had to leave and I couldn't finish it. Yeah, the metal drummer.
Yeah, I forget. The guy's in a bunch of stuff. Anyways, it won
I heard
like
it was a good
some
movie.
awards or something like that. But yeah, it
That's good, huh?
wasn't bad. It just kind of
just ends.
No, I mean it's just kind of like a lot of parts are like silent, and it just you can feel like his internal struggle with it, kind of. You know what I'm saying? It's like
yeah, that's cool.
Kind of puts you in it a little bit. So
yeah.
Well, I was gonna say that they used to have sections at the Grateful Dead shows where they would give people that were deaf balloons, then they would feel the vibration through the balloon.
Oh yeah.
That's a good idea.
And then was there nitrous in the balloon for them?
There was one that they held and the other one they could suck out.
Classic. Yeah, I mean when we arrived to the IT Festival, which was the fish festival we went to in Maine when we were just graduating high school, it was at an airport, like an old Air Force base, Loring Air Force Base in Maine, but they've shut it down. I think it's like a strip mall now or something. But at the time, it was an old Air Force base that just wasn't in use. But when we showed up, it sounded like an airport with all the tanks and everything. It was
wow.
It was loud. It was very loud.
Yeah.
Oddly enough, that Air Force base has had tons of UFO sightings, I guess, back in the day. So
Well, it's at the top of the world or the top of the U.S.
yeah,
so.
I mean it's at the very tip. I think New Brunswick, it's like just over the border from New Brunswick or something. So, that was a weird place for that to go down. I mean, I had never been that far to the East Coast before, and to take a 19-hour drive to get there through. We actually went through your Vermont. We stopped in Montpelier, had some, had a nice little meal there, and
the massive city of Montpelier.
Yeah, it was just a nice little mountain town, and then we stopped at some place where they were all like culinary students, and it was like good food but cheaper because they were culinary students or something.
Nice.
I don't know. It was something kind of cool like that, but yeah, good times. I mean, like I said, music I think goes hand in hand, at least for us, with all this stuff. I mean, it's hard when we do the show because I don't want to feel like I go too deep into it because if people aren't into this kind of music, it might not be interesting to them. But I think that if you listen to our show and you like what we have to say, this has been like one of the more massive influences on us. And I think that kind of stuff is what leads you to these other ponderings and these other like knowledge quest type stuff. It's almost like it embeds this mystery thing into you. I don't know how or why specifically yet. I've been trying to figure that out, but
well, there's always been a connection to like improv, even with jazz. I just got done reading On the Road for like the third time, and that's where they got the name for that one fish festival, because they would go see these jazz players and they would have it, you know what I mean? So it's like even the jazz, they were expanding their consciousness through improv, and I think that's kind of the beginning of all the improv bands.
Yeah. Yeah, no.
It's almost like a dumbed down version of jazz, not to put the music down or anything, but it's like it's a simpler style, which actually allows more common people to kind of connect to it.
Maurice does not like fish anymore. We fight about it all the time.
I mean, I know I like
no.
the band, but I don't necessarily think that the stuff that they're doing right now is their best. I still like the band, and I still listen to them all the time. I have them on my Pandora, but I kind of go up to the year 2003 and then, back away if it's past that. But it is what it is. I was listening to a lot of the Trey band, the lead guitar player solo project, from recently, and I actually was grooving pretty good on that.
Yeah, I've liked some of his solo stuff for sure.
That first solo album was really
project.
Good.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I like all that stuff. In terms of like what about the psychedelic stuff do you think is the most like mysterious, or like most like what makes you think the most about it? Is it, or do you not really look at it like that? Do you know what I'm saying? Like, is there some aspect of it that you find like most mysterious?
Man, no, I find stuff about myself mysterious. It kind of opens doors and shows me, stuff that I hadn't looked at, and that's the stuff that's mysterious. Is I get to these places where I feel like everything's grooving right along, and then some new thing is shown to me, and it, shifts how you look at all of life, because I hadn't considered this aspect that created this sensation in me when I do this one thing. It's over life I've like created reactions in myself, and I'm slowly like unweaving them, trip by trip. I feel like I'm able to tap into certain places that I've kept trauma and look at it and realize, when that trauma happened, I tensed up a certain way, and now I feel that, and I'll tense and not even have the same experience going on, but it like created that trigger in me. That's been the mysterious stuff, is going back through some of that and rewriting some of those past traumas by, telling myself that, hey, look, you made it. You're all right. Past me.
Yeah, I wonder too, because I think for me, obviously, we talk to a lot of different people. I read a lot of these people's books. And I like some of the more esoteric elements of it, but it's weird because I feel like, okay, so I like that aspect of it, and I like doing psychedelics, obviously, but I think that when you look at it from like a research or like a studying it or some kind of a way, it's something completely separate. It's almost like, it's very hard to explain. I think if you're a researcher and you've done it, you definitely have insider insights that'll help you, on that road, if you get what I'm saying. But if you've never like done some of the things or whatever, I think you can have interesting insights into it, but until you've actually done it, I think to make like full declarations about things, I think is a problem. And I get that there's going to be scientists and everybody, but
well,
I think
I was just mentioning to you that clip that you shared of Strassman explaining his DMT experience, just his story leading up to his experience, saying that, I did this back then, but I didn't want to tell anybody because I didn't want to flavor my research and say, obviously you're going to promote this because you've done it and you're part of the culture. Right. Instead, he kept himself separate, and later in life decided, I can come out of the closet now. Because it does. It definitely, you don't want to be pigeonholed into being that guy that only does that because you were into DMT. So now all your research has to be how positive it is.
No, I mean, that makes a lot of sense. And like I said, I think, some of the psychedelic scientists we talk, like, I think that there's some that'll admit it, some that won't. I think that there's people that are currently working on things that might have insider insights, and like you just said, there might not be willing to share. Maybe they'll write a book after it's all said and done, or their research is complete, or something like that. But yeah, I do think I think it depends. I mean, we talk a lot about DMT on this podcast. I've never done it. Maurice hasn't done it. However, I've done all the other serotogenic receptor psychedelics, so I have a good idea. And non-psych, we've done salvia and stuff that works off your other receptors, your kappa opioids, and your tropanes and things like that. So I think we do have kind of an interesting look at it. But I think, again, when you look at like a DMT, I'm not going to like make declarations. I'm going to ask a lot of questions, because I think the interesting thing about it, though, is that we do have it in our bodies, like we produce it. And I don't know if you've seen that DMT Quest documentary that John Chavez did, but he does a good job of showing, like, look at how it started with, like, what Rick Strassman was doing, and how, there's an inkling that this could be at play. And then now this neuronal system agonist theory that they have, where our whole receptors could be playing off, like when you do a psychedelic, it could all be reduced down to those DMT receptors, as opposed to just them working as separate compounds. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, no, I think, just like I was saying in that first DMT experience I had, where I came back feeling like I was a person I used to be for the first time. I think that DMT space is something, I can't recall specific childhood memories where I had, awakening experiences or DMT mind-blowing experiences, but after going through it as an adult, like, I know I've been in that space before. Like, whether it was at church, having some mystical thing as a child with the understanding I had then, whether it was at a rave, like, I know I've been there, because we have DMT in us. We all know what it feels like. We just don't know that we know what it feels like.
Right. So what do you attribute that knowing that what it feels like? Is it like an awake, like a dream where you're kind of half awake, or?
It's just this, an ineffable vibration. It's like...
So it's something you feel day to day while you're awake.
Yeah, right. It's like a state you can feel. And I think we tap into it all the time. But then when you, overdose on it, or overdose is the wrong word. But when we, smoke a whole bunch of DMT and flood our brain and our system with it, it's a more potent experience. But I think we know that space, we know that vibration, we have it in us already. Whether it's being created by our stomach or our pineal gland, that can be scientifically, studied till we've figured it out. But
right.
We have it in us. It's being made. It's part of the zillion different systems we have in our body that regulate all these chemicals and hormones we produce.
Well, you do have, I mean, a lot of people talking about the more real than real, which is something that people talk about in dream states, like lucid dreaming, and also near-death experiences, and obviously psychedelic experiences. But I wonder if there's going to be any future research into that kind of stuff, because I think that would be fascinating. And I will say, I found, because I follow a lot of, obviously, the different topics we talk about on different forums and just see what people are saying, it seems like the near-death people are resistant to the idea that it could be some sort of endogenous release. And we've talked about this with Strassman recently, and Maurice likes the idea of it being like some sort of chemical gateway to another dimension. So when you die, that's where you're going. And I think those people think of it as like, that's just the biological, physical thing happening in your body, and then it's done. So it's almost like threatening to their narrative of the idea.
To their spiritual.
Yeah, there's something more. It's almost like a more of a religious or spiritual element to them.
Yeah, no, and does one have to negate the other?
Well, that's what I say. Why can't it be both kind of
right.
deal?
Yeah, no, it doesn't seem to need to negate. It being a gateway can still mean you're going to wherever you might think you're going.
Right. And I would even argue to those people that that's where the idea of spirituality and religion might have originated from, was possibly psychoactive compounds in general. I mean, that's been my reoccurring theme on the show for a while. I know there's some people that get specific and have different theories and actual books and on certain specific things, but I think all metaphysics, the idea of metaphysics, comes from these altered states of consciousness, whether it be psychoactive compounds, lucid dreaming, whatever,
fasting,
sleep paralysis, fasting, exactly.
Right. There's all kinds of ways the human body gets to a point where it has to have an altered experience.
Right. So I think that that's where I would go with that. And like I said, I think that people just need to be a little bit more open-minded. And I think that if enough of those people got on board with it, you might start to see some more of that kind of research happening out there, as opposed to just protecting the identity of what they think is happening, as opposed to, I think that when everybody gets fixated on one idea and it gets held on to for 30, 40, 50, 60 years, it becomes tough to then, work off that. You got to keep things moving, you got to keep this ball rolling. You can't just stop at this one thing. So,
yeah, I think that we got the ball moving pretty good right now. We just got to keep pushing it up that mountain.
Yeah, I agree. What do you like in terms of stuff because obviously, you're ingrained in the community and stuff. What do you like, what do you like about what's going on with research for more of the scientific stuff? Is there anything that you focus on lately or just interested in from like a research standpoint?
Man, the stuff going on that Strassman mentioned, I think it was only in the Patreon section that he talked about it, but they're working on research about neuroregenesis or whatnot with DMT, and not talking about tripping, talking about the actual chemical, what it does to your neurons, which is just mind-blowing. I'm no scientist, so I can't say I fully
you're talking about
grasp all of this.
Algernon pharmaceuticals.
Algernon, yeah.
And they also are doing the stuff with the stroke stuff too, because they think that somehow that DMT could preserve something that happens with the cells where they
protect and rebuild.
Yeah,
from how I understand it.
Yeah, from like lack of oxygen, they get destroyed during the process. So they think that could help protect and regenerate after that happens, which I think it'd be interesting to see where that research goes.
Yeah, that's the stuff that's caught my eye the most recently that I've just been blown away by, because once we're able to study some of these things, because we got our foot in the door on a lot of this, because there's soldiers that have PTSD that nothing helps them. There's some that we have great help for, but some don't respond to any of the treatments we have. So MAPS is able to get these studies through to really study psilocybin and MDMA to help these people with PTSD, and that's awesome. But now that we have these chemicals and we're allowed to study them, we can go deeper. We can look at how, a mushroom might affect your circulatory system. And it may not, it may do, but we now can possibly research it. And I think that's super exciting.
Well, I think that's what Strassman actually used going into his trials, was to use basic metrics and clinical studies to get it through, to do it that way, as opposed to, as you mentioned before, knowing that people are having these weird experiences and then trying to figure out a little bit more about that. And now we even see those DMTX studies. I know the Dreaming Jaguars are having that.
They announced who it was.
Yeah, I forgot the person's name, but check out Dreaming Jaguar's new video. Yeah. They have all the information on there, and looking forward to that.
That's going to be amazing. When I first heard that they had a person that was willing to talk that had been in that space for that long, I was just like, oh, I'm so excited.
That's sweet.
Would you ever participate in something like that, given the opportunity?
100%.
He's offering up his services. If anybody's listening,
ladies and gentlemen,
Imperial College, please listen.
Knowing that somebody came back and can not only function but can go and talk to other people, that's all I needed.
Yeah, I think that it'll be interesting to see what happens. Obviously, what this person has to say, but also, I think one of the ideas is do you think it's possible if you stayed in the state long enough to have a conversation? Or because I feel like all the trip reports and the people we've had on the podcast, it seems like there's some like missing connection between whatever this entity is, whether it's a part of you or external. When communication starts to happen, you can interpret things almost like symbolism, but it sounds like there's not really an actual like conversation happening. It's some sort of psychical thing happening. So do you think that it's possible to actually converse with one of these things and find out, hey, are you me, or are you something else, or what's going on here?
I think so. I think we definitely have the ability to communicate, and if there was a longer time, we might understand the communication that's going back and forth, because I think there is communication going back and forth, and I can't say I understand it 99% of the time. And I think a lot of other people we're all trying to F the ineffable, you know, we're trying to put words to something that there's never been words for. And I think there's communication going on, and it's going to take long periods in that space for us to build the language, to find the Rosetta Stone, to like tie their language to ours in a way that we can at least pass basic ideas back and forth. And I think being able to stay in that space is going to allow you to map it to a certain degree, you know, to kind of see where the boundaries are and poke and prod a bit, whether it's a
right. What about the symbolism though? Like, let's say you got into that space and you started seeing some symbols that meant something to you. Would you then think that it would be something external trying to communicate with you? Or would you think that then, I mean, obviously you'd have to be in the experience. I'm just saying hypothetically. Or would you think that that's you then? Because you know yourself, and you know that would be a way to get through to yourself.
I think both. And
You're
I
making
think
it
it's
so
useful
easy.
both ways. I mean, you go at it both ways. Look at it as, oh, what am I trying to tell myself that I'm not listening to? And then say, you know, what is the universe trying to yell at me right now? And whether one's true or the other's true, they're probably still both useful to investigate.
Well, I guess if you were looking at it even from like a Vedanta or pantheistic style, like the universe is one thing, and the one thing is considered, let's just say, God, that maybe that would be what's happening, because then that would be a way to get outside your consciousness and have a conversation with something else and realize that it's all you and it's always been you the whole time, or something like that.
Bingo's is Nemo. That's it right there.
Bing bong.
Have you ever had any feelings like that, or any like I don't even know if that's the right word, but any like experiences where you felt like had an epiphany similar to something like that?
Tons of times.
Okay.
I mean, that's it right there. That's the feeling I'm always going for, I think. You know, that's the dragon you're trying to catch. Is that moment where, you know, you have that realization that, oh, this is it, you know, whatever it is and whatever's around you at the moment, that's it. That's the universe at the moment for you. And you can be thinking about what you're going to do tomorrow at 3:30, or you can soak up what's there right then and right now, and, you know, you're it. And when you can have those moments of realization, you know, they can come a lot of ways. I really do feel I've had those moments in a Southern Baptist church in a small town in Ohio. You know, I had that connection to source, to something bigger, and tied in and felt it. And then I've had it at a party. I've had it reading a, you know, Hindu text before. The Reboot Gita will take you right there. You get laughing about the absurdity of creation and the interconnectedness of everything, and you can have moments where you're just like, holy shit, this is it.
Yeah, no, that is interesting. Yeah, I think that with everything that's been going on, you have seen this like evolved thing. Like I mentioned back in the day in high school, like you were kind of like an outcast or a weirdo if you were doing this kind of stuff. Like we were into jam bands, we were kind of in the countercultural stuff. Yeah, there were some people just doing it just to do it, but none of those people had any sort of insights. You know, they thought it was just like a cool thing to do, man. You know, there wasn't any like reverence or, you know, connection to anything greater. And I think that that's what set us apart back then, not to like toot our own horns, but we had some sort of like, like Maurice mentioned, like On the Road and like the Grateful Dead, and just this sense of adventure and getting out there and like what's the meaning of being a human being, kind of a thing. And
Right.
I think that, online you see a lot of people that don't think about that they don't associate psychedelics with even anything greater. And I think that those are the assholes you see leaving like mean comments to people or like talking shit, it's like, and I guess that's, it's not, again, we've mentioned this before, they're not a cure-all or silver bullet for the ego or anything like that. And I'm not a kill the ego person anyways. I don't even believe in that. I think it's what you feed your ego. And I think that if anything, it helps you just realize stuff about yourself. This whole self-dissolving thing. Yeah, I've gotten to states where I don't even realize I'm a thing anymore. So I guess maybe that's what they're talking about. But in terms of like your ego, that is what you are. You are.
Yeah,
your
no, I
ego.
think I'm my ego. So
Yeah.
killing that sounds like not a way to build love and connection.
Yeah.
Like
It's what you feed it. You've got to feed it love
Right.
and connection.
Right.
And you obviously have to
That's what it
love
comes
yourself before you can love other people. So
absolutely, or love your environment or whatever
yeah.
vibrating beings are around you. Like unless you love yourself, what is RuPaul? Unless you love yourself, how the fuck are you gonna love somebody else? Like you got to. You got to find that self connection and then connect to slowly bigger and bigger systems. If you go out and try and love the entire world and you've only learned to love yourself and not the people that are closest to you, you're going to fail. You need to first love yourself, love the people around you, love the community you're in, love your, general culture, and then love the whole world, because you're never going to get to that outer ring. I know I'm sure as hell not close to those outer rings. I'm still learning to love the people that love me.
Yeah, I mean it's tough now, obviously, with the internet, because you just see too much. I think it's almost overwhelming, and I think that's what you see most people respond to is just too much information too quickly, and it's too much for most people to process. And I think it's from going from pagers and flip phones and stuff like that to now being able to see what anybody across the entire world is saying at any moment in time is just a lot to process, so I don't know. I don't know. I think that, I don't know. I think we all just got to try our best, because there's really no easy solution to this whole thing. It's just madness at this point. So
yeah, find a way to love and connect. If that's
Absolutely.
only people that believe and think like you do, that's where you're at, and that's awesome. Do that. Love and connect to people that can sit where you're at. But if you're able to go another level and love somebody that's a little harder to love, I think there's a lot of reward in that. And that takes a lot of work to get to, where you can take an idea that you don't agree with and just sit with it and sit with that person and love them anyway. It's hard.
Yeah.
Sometimes I can only love people that are just like me, and I need my shelled group, and I need that family and that support. But when I step out and can love somebody difficult, that's when I feel the greatest rewards. And I think that's one of the lessons that all these experiences have really led me to, is that connection is the whole, all of it. As much as I can connect to anything in my environment, I have a greater understanding of myself and the universe.
Mm-hmm. No, I mean, it's definitely true. I don't know if you've been watching any of our Mysteries and Metaphysics episodes, but the whole point is to kind of go look at like how we thought about things before and how we think about them now. And I think the biggest shift in the consciousness has been this knowledge quest. It's reading all these books. It's listening to all these different peoples and perspectives. And through that, you become aware of more people's consciousness and how they think and how they feel. And I think you just grow empathy through that. Like you become more empathetic. Right. I mean, obviously, a psychedelic experience here and there, or meditation or whatever, can bring some of those things out as well. But I think just connecting with more people grows you personally too. And I think that having that mix, like early on, it was all spiritual and mystical things, and we kind of worked our way. And now I'm entertaining more academic stuff mixed with some of the fringe stuff, and Maurice, likes a little bit more of the spiritual stuff, and we're kind of kind of like a pendulum in a way of, the way we think about these things. But I will say that through learning more, like if you don't know how things work basically, you're not going to learn the most complex things just because you want to believe them. Like that's not how things work, unfortunately. So I think that that's the biggest thing I've learned is just by learning the basic way of how things operate or the origins. I think way I say it normally is if you look at the origins of things, you get a better sense of how things work in general. Like if you learn how the origins of an ancient civilization came about, or the origins of inventions, or the origins of great thinkers, or things like that, you start to then learn these like patterns, and through that you start to apply that to everything. So it's like my wife and I will fight about something, and I'll look up the origins of it, and then I'll have all this knowledge. And there's a lot of people that just don't want to look things up, or they don't care, or whatever, and that's fine too. But I think that we get in a deep hole with this fighting online and stuff, I guess is where I start to get aggravated. It's like we all have Google. We all have the modern day Akashic record at our fingertips. We can all look up anything at any point. Why not do that? And I think that people are, I don't know. It just seems like a lot of people are resistant to just taking a couple minutes just to learn something new. And I try and learn as much new stuff every day as I can. So hopefully
I get frustrated. I don't have enough time to learn as much as I want.
Well, you try and learn one thing a day, that's not too hard to ask.
I mean, even if you listen to like an audiobook, by the way, I want to have you back on and talk about this in the future. I think you've brought it up before, but this book, The Four Agreements.
Oh yeah.
I'm going to start listening to that audiobook here
Definitely
shortly.
Do that.
I wanted to tell you a little story. I was listening to an audiobook last night, The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck.
Yeah.
And I woke up this morning, tried to pop it back on, and it was taken down by the author. So clearly he isn't practicing the art.
He gave a fuck and took
he
it
cared.
down.
He cared.
Oh, why? That's rough.
No, it was probably his publishing company or something. But
Was it a new book?
Fuck.
You never heard of that book?
No, but was
Yeah,
it?
I have.
Is it new or has it been out for a while?
It's relatively new within the last, when I say it, like 10 years.
Oh,
or
well,
so.
maybe something with like the audio book version of it or something they wanted to change or something.
Well,
like,
it was
who
on
knows?
YouTube for free. So
Oh,
obviously,
there you go.
Yeah,
that's what do you mean? That's it. Why would
yeah,
you?
that is it. That's what
'Cause
I'm
if
saying.
you
though.
have
I
to
thought it was
buy-
funny that the guy really he did give a damn. So.
No, but if you have to buy it, it's probably the publisher. But if you have to buy it on Audible, that's probably definitely why. I mean, if you think about it, if you wrote a book, why would you would just be cool with people? That's your art. You spent time in it. I'm all about
most people wouldn't, but the guy, if you listen to the book, you'll understand what's going on. I mean,
get what you're saying.
He's just talking about how he, to care less about things, and it was pretty good. I listened to like 3 or 4 chapters. I really enjoyed it. I was just kind of bummed that it was gone in the morning, but
there's a lot of stuff. For a while they had the Fish documentary Bittersweet Motel up, and then it would always get taken down, and now there's just a really crappy version of it that's been up for like a long time.
Like it's such low quality.
Yeah, it's like 580 or
the band's like that's fine. If you want to listen to us and watch us like that, you deserve it.
Yeah. Well, this one guy would post all these old Howard Stern shows, and then they would take them down. Then he'd pop up as I don't know if it was the same guy, but it would be like the same content but on different channels, and they'd pop up, then they get taken down, pop up, taken down.
That was like that guitar teacher guy that was doing those Fish.
He still does them. He just doesn't mess with the bands that get him flagged,
because he plays the videos in the middle of like the lesson while he's like doing it, and obviously that'll get you on the copyright.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
I mean, look, I see it both. With the audiobook stuff, it's like if you spent like 3 years writing a book, you should get paid for it. I'm not one of these people that's like everything should be free. Like you're putting your time and your efforts and your life story or whatever out there.
I agree. The author should get paid, but I think we have to solve the problem of there's no public library that people are using anymore.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So if there was a public library and there used to be a way that we got our community's resources together,
started up,
share books, we need to do that in a digital format, and it has been done. It exists. I'm not going to say names on this because
the new library of Alexandria.com.
Yeah,
exactly.
But yeah, I mean, I definitely think that I definitely think that that's a good idea. That should be the case. Well, look, because even if you went back, because there's some that are not copyright anymore. Like if they're 100 years old or whatever, I think it is, or 80 years old. There's some like dating.
It's like 20.
Is it? Is it 20 years?
I think so. After a book's published, I think 20 years
Okay.
later, as long as the person isn't still holding rights to it or alive.
Yeah. So whatever it is, I think it's different for different state or countries and stuff like that. But let's just say you said 20 or 30. Well, then it should be able to. There should be some vault of all that stuff on there. And even though it might be outdated, I think it would be a great resource for researchers and people studying like ancient civilizations and all sorts of stuff. And all these people complaining about like nonsense in these different fields. It's like if you put more information out there to the general public, you'd have a lot less people questioning you or coming up with like crazy theories or whatever, you know, like that kind of stuff. So I think that just more knowledge is better. And I guess that was my whole point to begin with this whole thinking from back then to now, is like this evolution of becoming a more empathetic person. Is like knowledge is power. It gives you a better platform to think about things. And I think that once actually I got into philosophy is when I really felt like the biggest shift of consciousness. And I started to think about other people and the mind and how things work. And it just gave me a better sense. And I never really studied philosophy in school or anything like that. So they didn't teach us to it in basic, you know, high school either. So
Yeah, no, I definitely, my first wake up to that was like college sociology courses. Those were like the first time that I really was like, oh wow, you can like study how people act around each other and their interactions with one another. That's like a thing that people do. And then you dive down those rabbit holes and humans are fucking interesting. You know, the stranger than fiction thing is, there's a reason for that. You can't plan what we do because it's irrational most of the time.
Life is crazy in a way, you know, like we are, I know people, I'm going to make a shirt, so a couple people mention it, but we are living, breathing magic. And I know I've said that on the show. So like whether you want to believe anything more than just that statement, it's true. We're here, we're having these conversations. There's technologies, there's, you know, via science. And how did we get here? Well, you know, you could go down a whole thing with that, but let's just say superstition led to, you know, ritual led to philosophy led to science, and you know, here we are today. It took all those steps to get to the point where we have this technology now. So I would say that I think that, you know, there is magic in the sense, and from where we used to believe things to where we are now, I think it's all been important to understand our you know, our relationship to the universe. So well, let's wrap it up here. Do you want to do a short Patreon segment? Do you have another 10-15 minutes?
Sure.
All right.
Let's go for it.
So let's wrap it up here. If everybody's or anybody's interested, go check out Trent's podcast, Continuing the Conversation. It's on Apple. I think you're on Spotify. You're on all
Apple, Spotify, Google, Stitcher, whatever, all Breaker.
All right. And if
Humpty Dumpty, I have no idea. It's on all of them.
And if you're interested, definitely check that out, because it is interesting in the way he brings people together via Discord, and they have these conversations, and then they come up with these episodes and topics and stuff. So definitely check that out.
And come join us. That's the most important part.
Yeah.
Go to Discord and join us.
And Trent is all about community and online spaces and connecting people and everything. So, you know, like I said, I definitely recommend checking it out. And I know he's been a huge support for us and connected up to us to some people. And look at that. Is that the new one from the store?
No, that's when the.
Yeah.
School.
I ordered one for myself from the store. I've yet to open it up, but
Nice. No, I haven't got the ones I ordered from the new little shop.
the little shop of horrors.
Yeah.
So yeah, go check. Also, if you're interested, since we are going to do a Patreon, head on over to our Patreon at patreon.com/MindEscapePodcast. For just $2 a month, you'll get exclusive guest episodes and segments. Again, if you listen to our show, it's just $2 a month. We are about to do one with Trent. We've got a ton of them on there with all of the different guests that we've had on the show. So go check that out. Also, we do have a Discord as well. You can check us out on Discord. And we do Twitter Spaces. I'm not going to be doing much with the new baby on the way, but when I find some time after that, we'll get back to doing some of those Twitter Spaces as well. Also, head on over to indrasweb.org. This is a social media platform we created to connect open minds. Basically, we have these kinds of discussions on there and post articles and stuff, and no nonsense on there. It's just this kind of stuff, and without any of the extra background noise. So if you're interested, go set up a profile on there. And one more thing, we have the Mind Escape t-shirt that we are giving away at the end of the month. So if you're interested, look at that beauty there. Trent has his on. If you're interested in the t-shirt, all you have to do is go to our Apple Podcast channel and go leave us a 5-star review, take a screenshot of it, and then send it to mindescapepodcast@gmail.com, and that'll enter you to win. We have a few submissions, so there's a good chance if you enter, you might win. So
Beautiful.
But listen, Trent, this has been super fun. Like I said, I want to get you back on and discuss the 4 agreements once I get done with it, because I know I have heard you talk about it and you light up. So
Absolutely. It's my jam.
All right. Well, everybody out there, stay safe. We love you, and we will catch you next time. Peace.
Peace.